SEC football, playoff football, like that's not a guy you want to face. And at the same time, it's exactly what you said. Can we get to him enough to make him put the ball on the ground? Because he does. How do you deal with that as an Oklahoma guy?
You don't. I had folks try to, like some people follow me on Twitter, and I had a guy that was in my mentions, and he said, hey, look, compared to the wishbone quarterbacks that carried it about the same number of times as he did, if not more, he actually fumbles quite a bit less. And I said, you're not going to win friends and influence people by rationalizing fumbling the football. You're just not going to do it. And to say that, hey, we're glad he just doesn't fumble it more, that's never going to be okay. I mean, this is a university for which last year, running back Abdul Adams, right? Or what is this, 2017? This is 2017. Running back Abdul Adams was averaging about 9.6 yards per carry, okay? Every time he touched the ball, first down, going to the house. I think he still got one of the longest runs in OU history. He put the ball on the ground one time, and he was never heard from again. He hit the portal, and he was out to Syracuse. Like, it was like that. So this is that university. So to see this kind of just utterly inept ball security by your quarterback, even by Ramondre Stevenson, who is your number 2 tailback now, you're just going, hey, guys, when did we stop caring about ball security? And that's being too harsh. They care. But there's something that Baylor was doing that other people have done that have, one, enticed that man to put the ball on the ground, and 2, enticed him to throw the ball to the opposite colored jersey. If Jalen Hurts plays a clean football game like he did against Oklahoma State, I think it's a comfortable win. I think if Baylor's able to muck up this game and win the takeaway battle, then we got a ball game.
No, totally. And I'll give you 2 things to look at. If you're looking at Baylor's defense and that defensive front, and I agree those guys are difference makers, and I'm confident they'll play well. They have all season. They haven't had an off game yet, those guys. Mm-hmm. For Baylor, I think one of the stats that just shocked me after the Oklahoma game was that the running backs only touched the ball 6 times in that game. Yep. There were only 6 carries by running. Brewer was just being leaned on, and that quarterback draw was working so well in that first half. And then JaMychal Hasty burst that long run in the second half, fumbles, running backs disappear. Mm-hmm. And, quietly, John Lovett here in Waco is having his best season as a junior with 6.4 yards per carry. And for me, I think it's going to be so important for Baylor to establish the ground game and not by just relying on Brewer to scramble out of craziness, which he does really well. But establish the strength up front and what you want out of those running backs, because now that Connor Galvin is back on that Baylor offensive line, they've played a lot better. And, with Oklahoma, I know the defense has been hit or miss, 41st SP plus ranking. I'm feeling pretty good. If Baylor can get the ground game going, I think that bodes well for the Bears as well.
I would agree with you. I also think that JaMychal Hasty is just waiting to go after people once again, because when he's ready to go, he's ready to go. You can give the ball to any number one of those guys. And Charlie Brewer, being that 11th guy that you have to account for, is good enough to take advantage of you playing man coverage and having your back to him. He's going to take off and get 11, 12 yards and just continue to gash you. And that's the thing about him that I love the most. When I study him, you see the completion percentage and you see the accuracy. I genuinely believe that Brewer is the best pro prospect playing quarterback in the Big 12 today.
Wow.
I genuinely believe that. And that's from study, right? It's from watching what he did in high school to watching what he's done at Baylor. Now, that aside, he's also making the parts around him better, as opposed to those guys, him living off of them. And I'll give you an example. When Jalen Hurts is asked to play from behind, it's not that Riley's calling all these run plays for his quarterback. It's that his quarterback doesn't see anybody open and starts running with the football.
Yeah.
And that's how I say he can't see it. Because if you're forcing him to run with the football by playing coverage, you want that. That's how you would draw it up as a defensive coordinator. Cool. Let's go pelt the quarterback, or let's make him go get on the ground. Either way, I'm much better off having this quarterback run with the ball than a running back, is the conventional wisdom. And with Hurts, it's even more true because he will put the ball on the ground. Brewer hasn't done that. Even as Baylor is pretty bad too about putting the ball on the ground. Like going into the game against Baylor, I want to say it was TCU and them that ranked at the bottom of the conference when we're talking about just total number of fumbles.
Sure, yeah.
And you're going to get opportunities, right? Both teams, and that's what's worrying if you're fans of either one of these teams. Both teams have great opportunities to get takeaways. And it's like, okay, I'm not used to being a part of a game in which I'm just waiting for this turnover to happen. And I don't know if that's the feeling that you've had. I know that in the games that I've watched Baylor play, particularly TCU and Texas Tech, it's like, oh, man, okay, these guys are just going to keep doing this, huh? And then you'll have a game like the one you had against Oklahoma State, and I'll go,
right,
that's the team that everybody wants to see in this Big 12 title game.
Yeah, Baylor really has, in that sense, kind of had a Jekyll and Hyde personality about them. You know, I think Baylor fans would not only point you to Oklahoma State, we'd point you to Kansas State, where we went to Manhattan and dominated them on the road. We'd point you to what we just did against Kansas, which seems insignificant, right? Like, it's Kansas. But Kansas has played a lot of teams tough this year. And I can tell you last week before we actually went up there were some Baylor fans going, man, we played Tech close. We played West Virginia close. Like, please do not let this game be close, right? And Baylor goes up there and rolls them 61-6. Like, that felt good. And then obviously, yeah, the first half against Oklahoma shows you. And I'm surprised by what you say about Brewer, man. I know I'm excited that my listeners are going to hear that, because there's a lot of Baylor fans that have been frustrated with him at points this year. But yeah, he's a playmaker, man. And I think what worries Baylor fans more than fumbles, because as many fumbles as Baylor has had, RJ, I don't think Brewer's fumbled it this season.
Yeah.
As much as he's run the football, it's been receivers after long runs, and it's been running backs during runs. Brewer doesn't put the ball on the ground. I think what worries fans is that he keeps getting popped.
Well, and that's part of it, right?
Right. And he's not built like Jalen Hurts. Like, Jalen Hurts is built to run the football, right? Like, he can run through guys. Brewer's tough as nails, but he's not a big dude. Like, the more he gets hit, I think that's what worries Baylor fans more than anything is we just don't want to see the guy go out of the game, because as much as we like our young freshman backup quarterbacks, we've got two really good ones. Those guys are not ready to play in a Big 12 championship.
I think if you had to play some sort of naked spread with Gary Bohannon, it'd be interesting, right? And by naked spread, I mean, hey, we're just going to run zone read all day. But,
right.
But to your point about Charlie, I take pride in studying the better players on each one of these teams, and I've been studying him for a couple of years. And then what I say, I mean, in that Denzel Mims is okay. Like, I don't think he's as good as everybody else thinks he is. I think Tyquan Thornton has an opportunity to be really good.
Wait. I need you to flesh that out for me.
I watch his route running. I watch his propensity to come back to the ball. I watch how many times he gets targeted. I see who is manned up on him. I mean, I should also add here, I am a sitting member of the Jim Thorpe Award Selection Committee. So defensive back play is what I watch. So I'm naturally watching a bunch of wide receivers. And the guy that I'm terrified of is Tyquan Thornton, because he knows what you're running, and he knows where he's supposed to be in it. And when he and Brewer are in sync, good God, man, I don't want to see it. Now, there's talent all over the place. That's the other part. And that was always what's frustrating about Denzel, is he's been in this league, it feels like, for like 9 years to the rest of us. Because, like, man, didn't Denzel graduate? It's like, no, he didn't graduate. And, I mean, you got some superstars over there, and I don't mean to just dunk on him. That's not what I mean to say. I just think this year he was supposed to be in that stratosphere with Tylan Wallace and CeeDee Lamb and the like, and he just hasn't got there. And I think it's not necessarily his fault. He's doing the best he can, but I think that Brewer is your best player. And at Oklahoma, that's not true for Jalen Hurts. And you mentioned how big he is. Like, we make the joke, that's a tailback back there. But also, I mean, I don't necessarily want my quarterback doing it as much as he's doing it. I mean, we're talking about damn near 200 rush attempts here, man. We're talking about breaking Jack Mildren's record for rushing yards in a season, and that was a wishbone quarterback. I don't draw it up that way. Nobody does. It's kind of like last year. Kyler Murray's the most slight quarterback in the league. Did it matter? No, because he was only running when he absolutely positively had to, because they weren't really calling him like that. Like, they call QB draw to get the offense off and moving, and then you go back to running the offense once again and pushing the football down the field. You don't do that with Hurts. He has to see level concepts. He has to see things coming across his face. They have to be intermediate passing routes. Or it has to be CeeDee Lamb just streaking down the field because he still manages to overthrow Charleston Rambo, who is the fastest guy on the team. I don't see that with Brewer. You know what I mean? It's going to be there. It's about, are those guys going to catch it? Because he's got a bunch of drops too, and that hurts me because his completions percentage should be one of the best in the country. And it's like, hey guys, hang on the football. He's putting it right there. So that would be the first. Maybe take a look at your wide receivers coach. I don't know.
Well, and I would tell you, I'll hit on Mims one more time and we'll move on because I want to hear more about this matchup. But I the difference in those two, Tyquan, by the way, being a true sophomore, has all the potential in the world, I think, to get where you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm sure you've studied them on film more than I have. Like I go to the games, I maybe rewatch them once or twice, and that's it. But Tyquan has not figured out how to make the big play yet.
Yes.
And Denzel Mims is the guy, and he's done it. He has, I think, 3 different game-winning or game-tying catches in the past 2 seasons, like with no time left on the clock. I mean, that's the guy that, I don't mean to just be cliche or whatever, but in crunch time, you need the ball in the end zone. You're looking at Denzel, and more times than not, he's going to get you there. I haven't seen Tyquan do it, and I know a lot of Baylor fans we really soured on him a little bit when he dropped that route against Oklahoma, right? The only real target he had that game, and it was a big one on third down. Your offense is stalling, got to get the defense, keep him off the field, and he had that drop there on the sideline. But anyway, tell me about, we've talked about the matchup, quarterbacks, some of those interesting storylines. Tell me what you think is actually going to happen. What do you foresee? What is Oklahoma's mindset coming in this week? Having to play a team again. It's hard to beat a good team twice, and I think both these teams are really good. So what do you see happening this Saturday?
Well, Riley actually spoke to this. He's like, the first year we did this, it felt so odd because it's just something you don't do that in this game. You don't ever play anybody twice. So it just felt odd. Now that they've had reps doing this, it feels like old hat. And I think that's going to be the advantage going in is this is a home field game for Oklahoma, or that's how they feel, right? Because the joke is we got this tradition in the Big 12 where everybody hands Oklahoma the Big 12 championship because that's how it feels, right? You roll TCU, you get back one against Texas, on and on we go here. But I'll say this, if Baylor shows up and understands what the moment is and that it's football and they listen to Rule when he speaks, right? Hey guys, just go play football. Forget about all this other crap. Just play football. Then they'll be fine and we'll see a really good game. But if they don't, Oklahoma's going to roll them because this is, like I said, this is what they are bred into. Like, we got a whole group of seniors now that don't know what it means, 1, not to play in this game, or 2, not to win it. So I think psychologically you got to give an edge to Oklahoma. But if you're able to get lightning in the bottle very quickly and make it a slugfest, that's what I think it would be. I mean, I think my pick was something like 31-27. No, 41-27. I wrote it down. I got 41-27 to Oklahoma. Mostly because I think the big plays are going to be there for them in a way that they're just not going to be for Baylor. And if you want to make Oklahoma hold the ball and move it down the field, they'll do that. I think Baylor needs a strike offense. I don't know that you want to just ride John Lovett as much as he's been great. He doesn't have the carries to say that they're willing to do that. It's been Jekyll that does most of that stuff. And when you need big third downs, as you said, you're going to go to your tried and true. You're going to go to the guy that you expect to make the catch as opposed to the guy that I personally think should be tasked with making the catch because he's going to get the matchup. Like, Mims is going to be matched up on Trey Brown and Parnell Motley. It just is, right? And Motley has had 2 of the last 4 game-winning defensive plays, right? He's got 2 picks. That's going to be the matchup. Feel good about it, fine. But if I get Tyquan Thornton matched up on Delaren Turner-Yell, who's a strong safety for Oklahoma, I'm taking it every single time. And this is me just knowing Oklahoma. When Oklahoma's safeties tackle well, they win football games. When their safeties don't tackle well, they lose football games. When Delaren Turner-Yell is having 8, 9, 10 tackle games, OU's going to win in a route. When he is getting run through or he's getting exposed on go routes, things that go further than 7 yards, Oklahoma loses football games. And what I know about Tyquan And what I know about Larry Turner Yell is I got this one circled at the start of the week going, hey, guys, we're going here. I know that Denzel is our guy, and if it's there, it's there. Fine, run the offense. But this is the matchup. Exploit this. Go after this. Make them adjust to this. And if that happens, good night, Oklahoma. Just because you don't. No, seriously, because you're gonna have to bring somebody else in. Like that's the thinnest position for OU. You just don't have a strong safety that you trust more than you trust him, and that's because he's a box safety. He's a linebacker. So anyway, that's how I would see it going. There's 3 different scenarios. I hope that answered your question.
Sure. No, and I'm surprised that you picked a 14-point game. I think it's going to be tight, and I know you said it's about mindset, but every time I've doubted this Baylor team this year and their mindset, they've come out with the right mindset every time. I mean, and I think that's a credit to Coach Rule, who's I think doing an unbelievable job. And you mentioned kind of how this game could go and the the different matchups, and we talk about. I know a lot of people talk about CeeDee Lamb, being available this week.
Right.
And what you said about the guys bracketing Mims is what I would say about CeeDee is an incredible player. Like nobody's going to dispute that. The guy's going to wreck on Sundays. Like I have nothing but good things to say about CeeDee Lamb. But Jamison Houston at corner for Baylor held Jalen Reagor to 1 catch for 8 yards and Tylen to 6 for 69 on 16 targets. That's with Grayland Arnold over the top, who has 6 picks this year. So I think when you're talking about Oklahoma's going to be able to hit some of these strikes, I actually think Baylor's defense, both with the combination of the pass rush that they've been able to do all year, along with those 2 guys over CeeDee, and I know Oklahoma has other playmakers, but I don't think Oklahoma's going to be able to have the big strikes. I think they're going to have to, maybe one, right? But I think they're going to have to sustain drives. And I think what Baylor did in that first game was, they took that commanding lead, and then what fell through for them was their defense was on the field the entire second half. And so for me, the question is, you're talking about Baylor being a strike offense. I think the key is going to be, can Baylor sustain a drive? Can Baylor give those defensive players some time to breathe? Because if they're out there against Oklahoma exhausted like they were that first game, yeah, Jalen Hurts is going to get free, and those receivers are going to get free. So I think for Baylor, as old hat as this is, it's about balance, right? It's can we hit the strike? Can we get Taekwon deep? Like, believe me, there is nothing I would love to see more than Baylor's first play be play action, post over the middle, deep to Taekwon. Like, we would all love that. But I think it's going to take some balance and allowing that defense to play to its best, because this has been a defensive football team all year. Baylor's defense has won all of those tight games for them. And I don't know, man. If I'm looking at it, I don't think it's going to be more than a 1-score game.
I mean, okay. I would argue with you about CeeDee and taking that matchup every single time, but also I would argue about it because Denzel only lines up on the numbers. CeeDee's going to line up in the slot. You're gonna have to mix and match your coverages, and you're gonna have to pattern match if you're gonna try to take him away. But I mean, Rule was right. You can't just say we're gonna take him away because of the other parts of the offense. But to your point about holding Tylan Wallace, I watched that game. Spencer Sanders is a turnover machine. He's inaccurate as all hell. And if it's in the vicinity, Tylan's coming down with it. Like that. We know this. We've seen this. So I want to talk about that in comparison to Jalen too, because he's not the passer that Brewer is, but he's better than Sanders is. And we're gonna have to watch it play out, because more than 50% of Jalen Hurts' touchdown passes go to CeeDee Lamb. Okay, more than 36% of his total passing yardage goes to CeeDee Lamb. So we're gonna get to see how this plays out.
Right.
Somebody's gonna be right, somebody's gonna be wrong, because this is gonna clash. Like, these trains are gonna hit. So I'm interested to see what it is. But if you're talking about Jalen Reagor, you're also talking about perhaps what I thought was the second best team wide on that team, because Tay Barber was killing people, and I didn't see a physical presence from him in that game, man. I mean, you're right. Cornerbacks beating him up, just destroyed him, and I'm going, Jalen, this is why you need to be in the weight room, son. And that's not going to be the case with CeeDee, right? So no,
Right.
I'm interested. I want to see this one play out.
All right, man. Well, I told you 25, and I think we're coming up to it. And unfortunately, being a youth pastor, I got to get out of here pretty quick. But any final thoughts or conversation points we didn't hit that we need to hear from you?
No, buddy. I'm blessed to be on your podcast. I appreciate you reaching out, and if you need something, let me know.
Hey, this was a thrill for me too, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. Go serve them up.
Take care.
Bye.
Yes, sir.